my name is Yevheniia and today my team and I are gonna reflect on the simulation game. We are Bike Champ. We make bikes so that ride so smooth you feel like a champ. We have a highly experienced team consisting of Nick Palombo, Alden Schumann, and Yevheniia. Nick is responsible for internet marketing and advertisement. Alden has primary responsibility of business analytics, and the secondary responsibility is brand management. And me, Yevheniia, who took president position and whose secondary responsibility is sales management. We're going to start by talking about our pricing strategy. We try to implement penetration prices in quarter 3 to 6. In the beginning, our prices were more of higher premium prices. However, in later quarters, such as quarter 6 to 8, the competitor factor played a role. So we lowered our prices to match the competitors and be more profitable. Also, another important factor for our pricing strategy was economy of scale. At first, it was very expensive for us to manufacture the bikes, but as we manufactured more, the cost of manufacturing lowered. Also, we add new features to our brands, and it basically increased our prices.
Now, looking at some of the rebate and competitor philosophy for our pricing strategy, price willing to pay was an essential tool throughout the entirety of the simulation, but specifically early on in quarters 3 and 4 when we didn't have as much of a market baseline for all the prices in different segments. And cost of goods sold was another useful unit, as looking at how much it costed to make a bike, we wanted a goal of at least 50% profit margin per brand, depending on how much it costed to make said bike. And rebates were given for all the bikes during the earlier quarters, such as 3 and 4, as we were a newer company and just trying to turn over inventory. But during the later ones, 5, 6, and so on, rebates were only offered to our older models of bikes at a proportional rate of the original price because we did not want to sell the newer bikes at a cheaper price. And during Qs 5 and 6, we set the prices of our brands comparatively to that of Walk Wheels and Flash Cycle, as they were the two top competitors by a long shot. And we had updated some of our most recent models to have similar components to theirs and priced ours a little bit cheaper comparatively to give us that price advantage.
Our product strategy was mainly we try to analyze customer needs and design products based on them. In quarter 3 and 4, we created 2 brands for each of our primary segment. At that time, it was recreation and work, and we created one bike that was more simple and cheaper, and one more luxurious and more expensive bike. Later, we analyzed competitor brands and improved our product. Brand judgment played a big role in our improvement. We tried to have as a high brand judgment as possible. We also purchased research and development and created new brands. In quarter 6 and 8, we tried to create more premium products for our customers because we started going into speed and mountain segment, which basically needed more premium bikes. Our promotion strategy consisted of sales promotions, advertisement. Our sales promotion was point-on-point display and rebates. We tried to display new brands and the most selling bikes, and we put rebates on all brands. We prioritized our bikes based on the demand in each region and how profitable they were. The most profitable bike was always on point on the display and was always our priority number 1. Advertisement was a big part of our success. We designed ads based on customer needs and use patterns, and we realized that the most effective ads have about seven priorities. Later, we copied the most successful ads by our competitors and altered them to suit our product. We also had local and regional media. In local media, we had one of the highest number of local media inserts, and we advertised the brands that were the most profitable. In regional media, it was very beneficial for us because at first, most of our sales outlets were in Asia and North America, Europe. So we advertised in these regions more frequently. We placed regional media advertisement based on media preference of our target customers. We also had internet marketing. We always invested in the best web design and placed the high bids, trying to outbid our competitors. We also invested in social media. However, we spend more money on video sharing and our blog.
So now look.
So we're also gonna talk right now about our placement strategy. We start by opening stores in Asia region and expanded to Latin America and later to North America and Europe. By quarter 8, we were present in every region, and in total we had 10 stores and 15% of market share. Our initial success in Asia led to our focus on this market first and later expanding worldwide. Our goal was to penetrate the larger markets by the later quarters. We also opened stores based on seasons of each regions. We opened most stores in Latin America in quarter 5 because the demand for these for bikes was increasing at that time in this region.
And now looking at an industry analysis starting with quarter 4. Quarter 4 was the first one with the open market, with each company having their bikes actually in stores and selling back then. So this is the first actual data you get of competition. And as you can see right now, it's a relatively even overall field with everyone with a couple percentage points of each other in terms of market share. However, looking at the different segment market share, there is rather uneven distribution of segmentation, with only 2 companies in the youth segment at quarter 4. There were only 3 companies in the speed segment, and as well as 3 companies in the mountain segment. So not a lot of companies diversifying back then. So there was a lot of market share to be had going forward. However, right now we did have easily the largest share of the recreation market share in quarter 4 at 29%, whereas Flash Cycle and Bike Kinetic dominated the work segment, combining to reach 61% of the market share. And then now looking at quarter 5, you'll see some more companies are beginning to diversify. I remember when we specifically got there, you sort of see that there aren't as many companies in different markets, and then this is most likely, yeah, everyone probably saw that at the same time and jumped in there. And as you can see, Walk Wheels and Go Cycle entered the youth segment in this quarter. Composite Bikes and ourselves entered the speed market, us creating the Speed Champ. And we had the highest market share in the recreation and youth segments. However, youth was the least profitable of the overall industry. And NORAM had double the demand of the other 2 regions. So basically, North America was by far the most profitable region to sell in compared to everywhere else. And now, finally, looking at quarter 6, there were starting to be some larger discrepancies in performance with some of the scenario that we see the game finishing with starting to take place here, as Walk Wheels has 22% of the overall market share, which just grew from there, and Composite Bikes has 11%, so that is the greatest range in leader to last place out of any of the quarters we've seen so far. And this is the first one that R&D investments came into play. So the new bikes have all the new parts on them right there, and then that allows for certain companies to get a leg up if they spent quick and got the investments all in one period right there. And there was also a large spike in APAC and Asian market demand of an increase of over 6,500 units, which was by far the biggest in any change in any market during the game. And that essentially brought Asian market on pace with the North American market of in terms of demand during those units and going forward, leaving Latin America still about one third behind them in terms of demand.
So next we'll take a look at the SWOT analysis for Bike Champ through quarters 3 to 6. So through our findings, we found the biggest strength of our company where we had a very extremely strong start, and we initially started with a very profitable recreation brand, and for the initial 2 quarters, quarter 3 and 4, the most profitable recreation brand, as well as the largest amount of market share in the division. The next one of our strengths is SEM advertising, which we were very successful at throughout all quarters after it was introduced. Our average scoring was between position 1 and 2 in web page searches for nearly every sector throughout the entire competition. Next, getting into some of our weaknesses, we found that one of our major weaknesses was our investments in research and development, or lack thereof. Definitely would have been prudent for us to invest more money into research and development, especially things such as the enriched carbon fiber material, as well as the bike computer, which other groups seem to do very well with after they purchased. And finally, our price strategy. We did not update our prices based on the most successful brand in the market until later in the simulation game, which definitely affected our market share throughout the game. And the opportunities that we identified as the most important throughout the simulation game were, first of all, the enriched carbon fiber material. It was an enormous once it was available in the market. I think that's when companies like Walk Wheels really took off when they were able to implement it. Another opportunity is the expansion to New York City, which throughout the game was, I think, the largest segment. And finally, the speed was an enormous opportunity for different companies as it was extremely profitable. And then the threats that we identified throughout the simulation game were an extremely top-heavy market within the later quarters, with Walk Wheels taking, I think, over 20% of the market share in total. The next threat was new technology, as I spoke about earlier with the enriched carbon fiber material. And it seems that new technology had an extreme impact on whether or not customers were willing to buy the product. Next, we will look into the key mistakes that we made, starting with quarter 3. So initially, we did not create a mountain or speed bike to keep costs low and kind of specialize in the markets as we were first entering different areas. So we initially just created a youth bike, a recreation bike, and a work bike. Another key mistake in quarter 3 was we did not initially expand to New York City. And finally, looking back on the profitability of our different brands, we found that creating a youth segment instead of a more profitable brand such as a mountain bike or a speed bike definitely affected our group negatively. Taking a look at quarter 4, we actually created a second youth bike before we got into the mountain or speed brands, which definitely did not help us, as our youth bike turned out to be our least profitable throughout the competition, and we did not base our prices off the most successful brands after the initial quarter of sales. Now, taking a look at quarter 5, this is where the initial R&D investments were made available, and we did not invest as much as we should have in those areas. Specifically, the biggest thing that we saw that we didn't invest in that we could have was the bike performance computer. And we also realized that we developed the enriched carbon fiber material in 2 quarters instead of 1, which gave the groups that were able to create or research this and develop it within 1 quarter a competitive advantage against us when they were bringing it to the market. Next, looking at quarter 6, one of our weaknesses and key mistakes was our lower rating in all advertisements and extremely poor ratings for the feed brand advertisement. Another key mistake in quarter 6 is we did not adapt our brands to the most successful ones. Later on in the next quarter, we were able to see what the most successful bikes were and see what features they had and adapt our bikes accordingly. And another one, or the final key mistake, was we still the enriched fiber material in this quarter, which hurt our market share. So after playing through 8 quarters of the simulation game, we were able to see that we tried to play the game in a much more strategic manner than was necessary. Instead of initially expanding to the largest markets, we saw undiscovered markets where we could attain the greatest amount of market share and distribute our bikes. And one of the main lessons that we learned was the market responds better to a fast-growing company than a well-developed smaller brand, which we felt that we were throughout the competition. And new material competitive advantage within your market sells much more bikes. So the simulation game was a great experience, and that had an extremely competitive feel to it, which kept our team extremely invested in the success of our company all the way through quarter 8. It was incredibly fun as well to successfully design and market a company with new and relevant technology, such as the 3D printed bikes, which all the groups were offered. Some of the cons that we found while playing the game was we felt that we played the game very well, but got penalized just for not expanding to the largest markets, which is something that we would definitely change if we were to play the game again. And another con was some of the customer needs did not seem realistic at times. One option to be specific was initially we had 21 speeds on our speed bike, and then later found out that the most profitable speed brands only had 14 gears, which we felt might not be the most realistic to a real-world market. And finally, we all thought that this simulation game was an amazing experience that offered great insight into real-world marketing. We learned that markets can change extremely quickly, and it is always interesting to reflect on your mistakes and learn from them, as you can learn a lot from your competition. And thank you for listening to our presentation today on behalf of all, and have a great rest of your day.